Hey guys, new video for Path of Exile. So in this video, we're going to go over the Scion dual wield armor stacker build for 3.25 that I made. Basically, this build is very similar to the way we built the Scion in Affliction League, where you use two swords and you just get a bunch of damage and try to stay around, 180 or 200k max hit with your guard skill up, or like 85k to 100k when your guard skill is down, and then just pump tons of damage and basically just kill everything before it can kill you, and while still having a lot of, quite a lot of defense to be able to take most hits in the game, right? Like a lot of medium hits you can take, like, the normal Zuri Flame Blast, you can take one of those. A lot of other things, except, and you just have to dodge the big spells like the double flame blasts or, Maven memory game and those kind of things. You probably can't really tank, I think. I mean, I haven't tried, but probably not. And also, this build does come with quite a lot of ES regen. Like, mine is really low, so it's, I'm saying like a really high ES regen, but mine's like 3,000, only 3,200. But, you could definitely get all the way up to like 5,000 plus. Like, some builds, POBs I've tried, have gone all the way to like 7,000, 8,000 energy shield regen. So that ends up being really comfy to play, because it's not like Leech, where if you're not hitting anything then you just kind of die. Like, say there's nothing around you to hit and you're standing in degen, you're not just gonna die, right? Because ES regen is always on. So that's one really nice plus for the build. It definitely does feel very comfy, always having this very high amount of ES regen. You can like walk through the Cirrus Storms and it's totally fine. Probably like one of the main reasons I like about this build is the high amount of ES regen you can get. Okay, so in this build guide, I guess we are going to be going over two different build variants. Well, one's going to be focused on getting a lot of energy shield, and another one's going to be more DPS oriented. The one I'm playing now is sort of like I don't know, it's just kind of a mix and match, right? Because basically, we go look in POB real quick. So these are the two different builds we'll go over today, the medium versions. I'll touch on these budget ones a little bit at the end as well. But if we take a look at the two stats for the POBs here, you can see the DPS, or the tank one, can get all the way up to like 9,300 energy shield. And this, by the way, is not all like non-mirrored gears, self-crafted gear. 3 passive voices, that kind of stuff. So I'd say like maybe 3 mirrors investment, or a little bit more, maybe 3 mirror investment, 4 mirror. So this is still on the low end, right? And once you get to the high end, I'm pretty sure you'll be like way over 10k ES on these kind of builds. So it's going to start getting pretty crazy once you start adding in mirrored items with like +1 endurance charge, and like maybe even a mirrored amulet, and like +1 endurance charge boots and all these kind of things. It's going to get even way more tanky than it is currently. Okay, so that is sort of overview for this one. You can see DPS 2, pretty respectable, close to 500 million DPS, can be quite a bit more. Like if you swap your gems around, like right now this build is putting the discipline in the helmet just to get levels on discipline for more energy shield, but you could easily just put discipline in your gloves and put wrath in your helmet and get tons of more damage, like well over 500k DPS. Okay, so max hit 2, very nice. 190k with your guard skill up, and like 100k when it's down, so that's very nice. On the DPS version, the main difference here is that you, instead of using an energy shield base, you go for a evasion energy shield hybrid base. You're not going to get as much energy shield, obviously, but you get a lot of flat evasion, which kind of does offset the Grace nerf. Not completely, but it does help. And you can see this version does get up to close to 900 million DPS using this body armor here, as well as using March of the Legion. We're not going to be using March of the Legion for the aura, but instead we're just using it to boost our smite. So you can see basically my smite, I can't really see because it's going off the screen, but it's like a level, let's see, it's level 33. And you can get to level 34 with a 2120. And so, yeah, level 33 or 34 smite aura is pretty insane. So basically that's why you use March of Legion, because it's like 35% more damage basically when you use it in this kind of setup. So that's the two main differences, is just the body armor and the boots. So when you're going to be building it, you can kind of choose which version you want to go for. You want to go for more, tanky route, then you go for these energy shield bases, or maybe you can mix it around, like you use the evasion energy shield chest, and then use March of the Legion and stay around 8k ES or something like that. So I haven't really finished up the high-end mirrored, like mirror tier POBs yet, because I'm not really sure which items I'll end up using, but I'll probably be using similar configurations, like one of these going for the tanky route and one going for the DPS route. As for myself, I'm not really sure which version I'll play. Might do a mix and match, but I would like to have 10k ES because that just does sound pretty cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the defenses of the build as we run a quick showcase. So basically, we're going to be doing one of these 10% less damage per item maps with the Feared in it and Union of Souls. So for the Feared fight here, basically, there's still a lot of things that can kill me. So Shaper Balls definitely hurt. You can take a couple of them, like 4 of them before it kills you. Atziri's Flame Blast doesn't really kill you, but it definitely does hurt. And so basically the strat I'm using is I'm able to actually get away with running this like low energy shield DPS build is because I'm actually running Defiance Banner, and Defiance Banner is going to give me 100% spell suppression when I plant it. And by the time we actually reach the bosses, we'll have enough charges to basically get, you know, full value. Oh yeah, and we should talk about the endurance charges real quick. Okay, so basically there is a couple ways to get your endurance charges, and probably the best way is going to be with the Forbidden Flame Jewel, the Unleashed Potential, and that gives you the Unleashed Potential notable, which is like +1 to Endurance, Frenzy, and Power Charge, and then you also get 500% increased duration on your endurance charges or all of your charges, and then you get 25% chance to get a charge on kill. So you see, if we go and kill something, we'll be getting, just like randomly getting our charges, like Frenzy, Power, Endurance. Wait, we gotta kill the ghost. Yeah, sometimes these ghosts, they spawn in this map, and then they go possess, like, the Feared. I've had them, like, possess Atziri and Shaper and this kind of stuff, and it's definitely not fun when that happens. Okay, so basically the way I get my endurance charges, like you can see, you get them on kill, or what I do at the start of the map is I weapon swap to a Red Blade Banner, and then you see we just use our Enduring Cry, and we get 50-second duration on our endurance charges. So pretty much, you know, 100% uptime, very nice. You just do it once at the start of the map, and you're pretty much going to always have all of your charges. All right. So this also does have the mod where it's like you can only damage enemies in this little area here, and this ends up being really, really annoying, especially on some monsters that are like trying to kite you, or that monsters that move around a lot, or if you have latency. Really, really annoying. Probably like one of the most annoying mods, I think, is this alright, here's a Feared, is this little ring thing. Alright, so let's see, let's put a portal up here and just go try to kill them. Let's get our endurance charges. They can definitely kill me, so let's kill off Atziri first. Let's do this. Let's use our banner. Okay, we're killing her off pretty fast though, so this is kind of good. Okay, gotta get out of these. I think we killed her, or I guess not. Now she should be dead. Wait, she stops moving. Alright, so now she's dead. The fight is pretty easy. We just have to go kill the Shaper, because he is like the next biggest threat with his the little Shaper balls he has have like a lot of penetration, and they end up doing quite a lot of damage. Yeah, these things. But we should be able to get a banner up. Okay, that's a lot of damage. Alright. I think there's just too many degen layers here. I guess we can kill this guy. Alright. I don't know what is going on there, but I don't like it. Try to make them move out. Alright, so here you can probably kill him. Okay, there we go. Shaper is dead, and then, I mean, fight's pretty easy after this. Vortex isn't really a problem either. Why is it so much degen here? Oh, it's probably Elder. Alright. he has like damage reduction when he's doing that skill. Yeah, now it's just Mr. Elder. And yeah. Alright, so that is like the Feared fight, and pretty much the rest of the map is just kind of annoying, but you know, you just kind of put on your movement speed flask and plow through it. This does have like Union of Souls on it, so that can sort of be annoying, but I guess once you get enough damage, it is not a problem. I guess that's one reason why I'm running this damage setup, is because, you know, the faster you run these maps, the more profit you make. And I've made like over a mirror in the past 2 days, farmed up 2 of my one peasant voices and that kind of stuff running these Waldo's maps, right? So I don't really care if I die once or twice, if I can complete the map like, you know, 10 times faster, right? Alright. Yeah, one thing that's actually really nice is in the maps that have the Cirrus storm things, you can actually just like run through the storms or AFK in the storms once you get enough ES regen. Like my build can almost AFK in them for a bit and then I start to degen. But that's because I'm not really like focused on building a lot of regen, right? But I think if you did focus more on regen, then you could easily just like AFK in them. Oh wait, we're at 103 stacks of this explosion thing. I think I've taken like over 150 stacks of the like explosion things. Let's just see what happens. Oh, it already went off. Okay, never mind. So yeah, 100 plus, like 150, I would start using my Molten Shell once I get to around 150, because that can be kind of scary. You might notice also that I'm not using any movement skill. It's because I ran out of gem sockets. But I guess I could fit it in, but I think I'm like moving fast enough with just like the Quicksilver. Especially for these kind of maps, is like your movement skill is like disabled in a lot of these maps, like all those maps, so it doesn't really matter. So I've actually just like gotten rid of it. But yeah, if I do want to use Leap Slam, I just take out my Defiance Banner, because Defiance Banner is like pretty much only needed for these like harder maps, right? Alright, so let's go finish off the map and then we'll go talk about the build. Alright, so let's go over the 2 builds real quick. Let's start off with the like the tank version. You can see our ES about 9k, over 9k, ES regen 5,300. And this is like going to go up quite a lot higher if you use your Defiance Banner, right? You use Defiance Banner, you see like 6,800 regen, and you get your 100% spell suppression. So why is Defiance Banner giving us ES regen, you might think, right? Because it doesn't even say anything about regen on the banner, and the reason this gives us like an insane amount of regen, you can see it's 59% increased ES recovery rate just from using Defiance Banner, and basically it's because of the Guardian Ascendancy. So this is like the main thing that makes this build work, is each one of your auras is going to get a secondary effect that scales with aura effect that has that says like 3% increased recovery rate of life, mana, and energy shield. So you can see if we take off the Guardian Ascendancy, we lose like half of our ES regen. So this is pretty much doubling our ES regen, or even more, because all of this does scale with our aura effect. So originally it's like 3% increased, right, per aura, but if we actually look in POB in the calcs, it's a 9% increased because this build has you know, ×3 aura effect, so it ends up being 9%. And you know, some auras we have are 11%, and that's because it scales individually per aura. So the 11% one there is from the Grace aura effect. The Grace aura effect is being boosted by our chest armor and ring, so that ends up going from 9 to 11%. And then the 59% is from the Defiance Banner, because Defiance Banner has more aura effect per valor consumed. So the more valor you're consuming, the stronger, like the more aura effect gets applied, and then that also does in turn scale the Guardian Ascendancy. This actually works the same thing for Necromancer. So if you use Defiance Banner on Necromancer, then you end up getting quite a lot of damage, because the Necromancer is 3%, you know, 2% increased attack and cast speed. If we go look like say we just allocate that and take a look at our attack and cast speed. You can see up here a 39% increased attack speed just from Necromancer because of the aura scaling on, the more aura effect on the Defiance banner. So that's one cool thing about the Guardian Ascendancy, giving us tons of ES regen. And then we get a lot of flat ES regen from the Fire Mastery. So we get 1 life per second per uncapped fire resistance. We have like 700 fire resistance. So we get like a lot of regen from there, and then also from Vitality. So that in turn gets scaled up quite a bit and then ends up being a lot of ES regen because of the amount of like increased recovery rate you get on top of a lot of these flat sources of recovery. Okay, so aside from that, where do we get our defenses from? Let's take a look at our max hit over here. Let's turn off Defiance banner because this does kind of inflate the numbers with the spell suppression. But basically with, let's kind of break down the defensive layers. So starting at like the max you would be getting is when you have your Defiance banner planted. This is like the max hit you'll be getting. Now, what if we don't have Defiance banner at like 193k? Now, this is also counting in Molten Shell, so let's take that off too. And then without Molten Shell, we're at about 125k max hit on Elemental and like 100k on Fizz. Pretty nice. And aside from that, our Endurance charges are also giving us another defensive layer, so if we turn those off. With no Endurance charges, you're at like 95k max hit, which is pretty insane, right? I mean, that's very, very, very high, I think. Will definitely feel very good to play, especially with the amount of recovery you have. Basically regenerating half your energy shield pool every second. So within 2 seconds, you'll be at full ES, and yeah, definitely very, very tanky. Let's take a look at some of the gear we're going to be using in the build. As for the swords, we just need 1 Resolute Technique because we're going for Precise Technique. And then basically these are going to be like the self-crafted gear. Ideally you do want to have a synth helm with like aura effect and gem levels and that kind of stuff, but if you can, these are a lot cheaper to make, so you can make one of these. And the main stats we're looking for on this build is going to be intelligence and fire resistance. That's the 2 main stats you want on pretty much every piece of gear. Intelligence mainly to increase your energy shield, and fire resistance to increase your armor because of the body mod over here. Armor's increase power, get fire resistance, and then armor in turn also gives you more ES regen. So basically getting fire resistance gives you more regen and more armor, which in turn gives you more damage. So fire resistance, very, very strong stat. Intelligence just there to get that big ES pool. Right, so you get a helm like this. I do have a video on how to craft this from last league. I think pretty much the same way to do it, just like fossils. So pretty easy to make one of these. And then for the Twilight Regalia, so this league you can move Grasping Nail mods over to different bases. Now, I did make a video about this very early on in the league, and basically just kind of, has gotten quite expensive to do. But ideally, you just kind of want to follow the steps in that video to get an armor similar to this, either on a Twilight Regalia or on a Necrotic armor. So Necrotic armor going to be more damage but less energy shield. So kind of before you make your armor, decide what kind of build you're going to go for. You want to be really tanky, then go for the Regalia. Otherwise, go for the Necrotic armor. Okay, so for the gloves, gloves to like a Warlock, if you want to go for the ES base, then like I think all of these bases you could choose to do evasion energy shield bases if you just want to go for max damage, but might not really be all that good and your max hit might be quite low. So I don't know, I'm still kind of deciding which version I want to play, and I think I might end up doing like a mix, right? Like doing like the evasion energy shield body armor with just like everything else full ES gear, like the boots, and like not use March of the Legion, stuff like that. But I definitely would like to get 10k ES because that just kind of sounds really cool, right? Okay, so for the gloves are the same kind of gloves that we've always used. You can go check out my crafting videos on these pretty much. That's how you make them. Oh, one thing to know about the gloves is in these Valdos maps, I've started to use the unique enemy mod, so like inflict when a unique enemy is in your presence, inflict lightning exposure, because that does roll up a very high exposure number, and I think you already have enough damage that you don't really need it for normal monsters. So having this additional penetration or exposure against the feared encounter is actually quite nice. Okay, so for the boots, like these are very simple boots. I thought of, you can also go for influence pair of boots. I think it's Warlord. Warlord has +1 frenzy, +1 endurance charge. On the prefix, I think it is, you can get. Basically, you can make a Warlord pair of boots. You can't get Tailwind because we are running Resolute Technique, so we can't crit, and so we'll never get Tailwind, which is kind of sad. But you could get a +1 endurance there. Otherwise, there's like synthesized boots with +1 endurance, which is probably going to be like a very end game item. Is going to be like a +1 endurance charge. Okay, so but for a very cheap, easy pair of boots to make is just get a pair of Warlock boots with like Fractured Energy Shield. Slam some essences on it for like intelligence or something else, or strength, I guess, because this build does need a bit of strength. And then just craft just get intelligence, fire resistance, high energy shield. And then for the implicits, the regenerate % of life per endurance charge is very strong for regen. You see, if we take the boots off, the boots alone are going to be giving us about 650 ES regen. So that's quite nice. And then the action speed is going to be very nice for, increase attack speed, movement speed, and that kind of stuff. Okay, so amulet, Ashes of the Stars, definitely still going to be BIS. You can see this amulet alone, I guess the amulet plus anoint is 45% more damage. Basically, this amulet just doubles your damage because of the quality to all skill gems. First of all, that affects like all of your purities, giving them, more resistance. And then also Molten Strike does have more damage on the quality, so that this gives you quite a lot more damage. As for your other ring, it's just a simple ring to craft. It's going to be the Grace RF ring. Basically, craft it like you always did with like, intelligence, resistance, fire resistance, energy shield, and then reduce mana cost of skills. You could go for like the Unveil thing we did lastly with the reduce mana cost of skills and then the flat reduce mana cost of skills, because mana cost this league is pretty insane. I don't know, like for me in the Valdos, you can see I'm basically never using a ring. Like I did craft this ring over here, very like quick craft, but I'm never really using it. So because like most of the maps I'm running are like 10% reduced damage per item, and I have to remove one item, and this is probably the least amount of impact is to remove this ring. So after that, Nimbus also very big damage multiplier because of the returns, especially for Molten Strike. Mage Blood here, and then the flasks. This time we are using all the same kind of flasks basically, and you do want to craft on this regenerate 3% of life per second, because this ends up being quite a lot of ES regen. It's like about 1100 ES regen just from that one mod, so definitely get that. And then let's take a look at some of the tree. So the tree setup this league pretty much the same, except we come down to pick up the endurance charge here, and then we get the endurance charge here. Then I think this whole area is pretty much the same. Over here, we're going to come down from the right-hand side because the Iron Reflexes node, like the area changed. So it's like really far to get it from this left-hand side. And the left-hand side, it only really gives you Unwavering Stance and 12% aura effect here. Just sad to lose that aura effect, but this side does have Precise Technique, Point Blank, and a lot of mana reservation. Also Leech, access to Leech is very big. And then also, so you do need some kind of source of rage sustain. So right now we're going to be using a tincture over here. This tincture also pretty insane, 33% more damage from the tincture. Now this, when you quality it up to 25 and you get 35% increased effect, you get 5 rage on melee weapon hit instead of 3. So you use this basically for like 6 to 10 seconds, and you get like a huge damage boost. So this compared to a flask is basically, it's not up 100% of the time, but it doesn't require flask charges. So that means on boss fights, you're always going to have it because it's like cooldown, right? Every 8 seconds it's up. Also, since you're getting 5 rage on melee hit, and you can get rage every 0.5 seconds, you get 10 rage per second. So in 3 seconds, you're at max rage. So very quick to build up rage to max. And one thing is that rage is going to start to decay when your flask or your tincture isn't up. So in order to kind of combat that, you still do need to take one of these points here, either this one up here, Vengeance, or this small wheel, 1 rage on hit, so that when your tincture is down, you can still, you won't be degenerating rage because you're not gaining any, right? So either this one or this one. Right now I'm using the Vengeance node, and it's worked out pretty nice, but if you notice you're not at max rage consistently, then just swap over to this 1 rage on hit here. Okay, other than that, the Thread of Hope here, pretty nice to grab Iron Reflexes, and this node here. You can also grab some other cool things like Rampart, and then Mana Flows. These are two very good nodes. There is a really small node down here that you can grab too. It's like 5% armor per endurance charge. It's quite nice. And that's pretty much the items for the jewels. We got our Timeless Jewel, Brutal Restraint. The Conqueror doesn't really matter this patch. Just get a Brutal Restraint with a good seed that has a lot of aura effect on it. And then for the clusters, this time we're going to go for Intelligence Fire Resistance pretty much on every single jewel. You will need some jewels with percent to all elemental resistances because you are going to need to get the cold and lightning resistance. Right, so I think a couple of those should do it, and the rest are all going to be just intelligence and fire resistance. And that's pretty much how we're able to get this very high intelligence, I mean not intelligence, but energy shield value. You do want to keep a decently high enough like mana pool, like 85, like 80 mana, probably preferably maybe a little bit more, like 80 to 90 mana open, so that you know, when you're attacking and then you have your mark going off and you have your tincture going on, that the, you know, leech can kind of keep up with it and you don't like run out of mana. So yeah, definitely try to stay at very high mana. Now if you can't sustain your mana and your skill links, you can swap out the elemental damage with attacks for inspiration. I was running this early on before I had a lot of my 35% increased effect clusters, before I had all that stuff. I was running inspiration because I just couldn't sustain the mana. Okay, so Watcher's Eye, a couple of things, good mods. Okay, so the increased energy shield recovery rate is good, but even better is the percent energy shield recovered per second. So that's going to give you the most benefit. Energy shield per hit is actually quite nice, but not needed. I'd say basically three best mods is going to be percent energy shield per second with discipline, and then for damage mods, Lightning Pen Wrath, and then maybe crit damage determination, or you know, the increased recovery rate is also good as well. If you want to go like all out, then you get like a double or triple discipline, Watcher's Eye. But yeah, anyways, there is no crit damage reduction on the build aside from if you want to get it on the determination mod. So if you care about that, then get the, you know, reduced damage from critical strikes on determination on your Watcher's Eye. You can also get it on your tree, but not really all that great. And then there is some essence mod I think you can use to get on the body armor. Okay, so other than that, we have melding. You are going to need a melding of the flesh with corrupted blood, right? Or on the Thread of Hope. So either one of those, get your corrupted blood immunity. And I think that is it for the gems. Let's go over the skill links. So helmet, in this helmet, we're going to have our Grace, Enlightened, Determination, and Discipline. Now, if you want a lot of energy shields, put your Discipline in the helmet. If you want more damage, then put Wrath in the helmet. And if you want more ES regen, put Vitality in the helmet. So swap the gems around depending on what kind of loadout you want to do. If you want to have more ES, then you go for this kind of setup, more damage, put Wrath in. More energy shield regen, you get Vitality in here. And then for the boots, so one of the main differences in the other setup, I guess we'll cover it later, is how you set up your gem links. But in this setup, yeah, we just have another aura link over here. Then we have our smite link to empower, and then we have purity of fire and defiance banner. Okay, so for the weapon swap, I guess I'll show you this in game. One thing that's kind of important to do is if you have auras in your main weapons, like you see here, I have haste, I have vitality, and I have blood and sand. When you swap over, you see my auras aren't turning off, they're still active. So in order to make that not happen, you have to have the same gem in the same slot. So you have haste on my main hand, my swap, I have haste over here as well. So vitality here, vitality in the same spot, blood and sand here. It doesn't have to be the same gem level, I think. You can see here it's still active, even though this one is level 6 and the one on my main hand is level 7. So make sure that you match the auras up, and you don't really want to have any auras in your right hand, because on the right hand, I say actually it doesn't matter, but you are going to need to have some slots for Enduring Cry, and you at least want to have Urgent Orders, or like 2 gem slots you at least want to keep open for this setup here. Okay, so that is that setup over here. Okay, so that is the gem setups over here. We just have the marks, and so right now I'm using blood and sand because blood and sand is quite a lot of damage. But if you want it to be tanky, there is like flesh and stone. You are going to have to get a lot more mana reservation in order to run that, and that's why I just haven't run it, because also it's like it only affects targets that are close to you, so I don't think it's that consistent. But anyways, okay, so let's go over the main links for Molten Strike. Basically, the main links are the same, except this time I'm going with the elemental damage with attacks, because if you can shock even just for 5%, which happens all the time, then this ends up being more damage than elemental focus. So going with the elemental damage with attacks, this also does give you reflect immunity for elemental damage, which I don't know if that's that good, because you still do fizz damage and that will probably kill you on fizz reflect maps unless you use I just use a flask like this, you know, reduce reflected damage taken during effect. If you roll it up to 55%, then you're immune to reflect. So okay, so as the Molten Strike links, and the way you calculate the damage is basically you have the balls over here. We have 12 hits because out of 9 projectiles we have 4 here, and then we have 5 here. So it's 9 projectiles, about 3.4 actually will hit a small target. All those projectiles return because we're using Nimbus, and then so 9 returns plus 3 is 12. So we have 12 hits on average for small targets, and then we do have a melee hit over here. So that's our DPS calculation over here, and let's go quickly go over the DPS version. The main difference is the body armor, the necrotic armor giving a lot of energy, evasion rating, flat evasion rating. Pretty much, yeah, basically it is the same. The crafting method would probably be the same. Like you want to go for just, you know, high energy shield, high evasion, then intelligence, fire resistance, and you can go for the you know, mana reservation efficiency, or you can go for the unveil mod, the energy shield regenerated while, you know, a rare unique enemy is nearby. There's a lot of different things you can do. For the gloves are all the same. Now for the boots, for this boot setup, basically what you're going to do is you're going to put smite in here basically. So just have your smite inside the boots, and it's going to be affected by the, you know, gem levels and all that kind of stuff from March to the Legion. Okay, so that's pretty much the only differences, except also, yeah, this one has Wrath in the helmet like we went over before to get more damage. So that's like the only differences between those two setups is the gearing for the boots, body armor. That's the two big differences. Like pretty much that's it, right? And then just where you put your gems. All right, so let's go over some of the other budget versions. So the body armor did get quite expensive to make, and you can see on the budget plus version we are still running the Twilight Regalia, but the main difference in this one is like the helmet is a little bit cheaper to craft. I think the affix levels are a little bit lower. And for the budget version, we're going to be using the Juggernaut Forbidden Flame and Flesh because it is, the other one is a lot more expensive. Basically, this version is maybe like 1 mirror or so, I'd say. I think you could probably craft everything in maybe a mirror, maybe 1.5. I don't like to give estimates on currency because all these things kind of change, but it's basically sort of a little bit stripped down with using cheaper things like the Forbidden Jewels are cheaper. We still do have Nimbus Mage Blood in here. There's no corruption on the ashes, but we are still using a, what do you call it? A Twilight Regalia with the Overcap mod. Now, it can get a lot cheaper than this. Basically, you can run a Formless Flame, and then you can also run a just normal Twilight Regalia that you just craft for tons of energy shield. And this is going to be better than using like a Grasping Mail instead. But yeah, you can see still able to get a decent amount of energy shield. I mean, 6,000 is kind of low. This one also is going to be using Alt's Uprising because it's going to be harder to get the mana reservation because this is like running 8 passive voices. So you can go check out the POB here, but it's basically the same idea, the same build, but then with just like worse gear, trying to make it work on a cheaper budget. And then we do have a no Mage Blood version. This one is like, I don't know, it'll probably work, right? But not really sure how good it will be. I haven't tried it. I do recommend probably having a Mage Blood before you do play this build. But anyways, oh, and like one kind of interesting thing you can do is for frenzy charges, since we have the 50-second frenzy charge duration, what you can do is for single target and bosses, since we don't have any frenzy charge on hit, you can actually just use Frenzy of Onslaught. And you hit the boss 4 times and you get your, what do you call it? You get your frenzy charges. You gotta be careful though, because when you're at max frenzy charges and you hit, it removes all your frenzy charges and turns it into Onslaught, which actually does nothing. So, you know, just like attack a couple of times and you get 50-second duration frenzy charges. Like this isn't needed, but Like there's already a lot of buttons in the build, but it is something you can do to get frenzy charges. Because like, I could come take this wheel here, the Mark for Death, Culling Strike, and then get the frenzy on Mark. But there's a lot of things like you'd have to remove. Like if you could remove this point, it was like 1, 2, and then 3, and then where would the fourth one be? The fourth one would be this mastery. So technically I can actually grab this whole area, right? I can get rid of this and have 4 points and get this, but then I noticed that with only just the tincture, I wasn't having enough rage sustain. Okay, like, well, why don't you just remove this area here? But then this is also giving me aura effect. And in order to hit the ×3 aura effect breakpoint, I do need this 1 point here. Otherwise, I would have to remove this Forbidden Flame, add another small cluster, and then find another jewel socket for the Forbidden Flame. You probably grab it here, but then you run into the same problem where you do actually have to grab some rage sustain and this kind of stuff. And then also there's like mana problems. So in the end, this setup was working the best for me, and it definitely did feel better than just not having all this extra rage sustain and like the aura effect, the energy shield, and then just trying to be greedy and going for the Culling Strike and frenzies. And then I noticed that I'm not consistently at max rage. My tincture uptime was bad. I had to use inspiration and molten strike. So the DPS looked good in POB, but in reality it probably wasn't even like, you weren't probably even getting that damage, half the time or more than half of the time. So this current setup is actually performing quite a lot better. Like it's technically less DPS in POB than my other setup with the this area here, but it actually feels like I'm doing more damage in game because of how consistently we're at max rage, and then our tincture is we're able to use our tincture more often. Okay, so let's talk about build upgrades. When I started this build, I was like at 130 mil DPS. I had 3 passive voices. I had really shitty rare gear, like really bad rare gear. I think I've sold all of it now, but how did I upgrade the character? What was the most impactful? Basically, I was like thinking, okay, I'm gonna buy the voices and buy the voices first and this kind of stuff. And actually buying the 1 passive voices was one of the worst upgrades I made. It actually was the least impactful upgrade I made, and I would have been better off making my rare gear and this kind of stuff. Because what does these voices, 1 passive voices, give me? You can see it's giving me 3 points. So that's like 1 point here for aura duration, which is like not really impactful. 1 more point here for this mana flows, and then this point for increased energy shield. So you think about it, it's actually not even giving me pretty much anything. It's just giving me increased energy shield and a little bit more quality of life. All that for these 1 passive voices. So actually the least impactful upgrade in this patch. I guess, in the way I'm building it now. Like if you wanted to go for this frenzy wheel, then yeah, you definitely need the 1 passive voices. But yeah, I could have probably waited on the voices and made a lot more impactful upgrades. So what was the most impactful upgrade? First one was this helmet. Getting a gem level helmet. This gives insane amount of damage. Let's go look in POB. So let's take a look at the helmet. If we take off the helmet, it's like 30% more damage on this helmet pretty much. And a lot of other stats, right, defensively. Also, another one is the gloves, getting a good pair of gloves with +2 strike, and a lot of other good stats like intelligence, attack speed, the exposure. These two, the helmet and the gloves, huge impact. Aside from Nimbus, actually, I mean, ideally you have a Nimbus when you start the build, but Nimbus is going to be like 60% more damage. So definitely get Nimbus first, and then I would make a good gem level helmet, get a good pair of gloves. I mean, this is assuming you already have a decent grasping mail, body armor. But yeah, gem level helmet, huge impact. And then swapping over to March of the Legion for damage was really big. You can see this is 31% more damage. Now, if you are going for the tanky set, then you do want to make a good pair of boots. Damage-wise, the helmet is the most impactful. Okay, also getting a good tincture. You can see this tincture is also about 30% more damage, which is kind of insane. Getting a good one with well, this one is even the right one. I have a better one now. There we go. Another 12 million DPS. So this one, these bases are expensive. I actually sniped this one for like 50C, but these bases are like 15-20 divines. It's like a I level 85, 25% quality plus oak branch tincture. Because basically these can go up to gain 5 rage on melee hit from 4 if it was like eye level, like only 20 quality. So makes a pretty big difference. In also like getting up to 31% pen is pretty insane. Okay, so yeah, how I would upgrade the character is assuming you have the body armor and a Nimbus, I would get the helmet first and then probably craft a good pair of gloves and then get work on your boots, and then going on Molten Strike, getting Awakened GMP. So you want to get Awakened GMP because without Awakened GMP, you're going to be at 11 projectiles. So going, it's quite a big damage increase, right? It's going to be like, what, another 40 million DPS just getting Awakened GMP, and it's quite cheap. Lastly, I got Awakened Multi-Strike at the very end. Like after I bought the one that has the voices, after I crafted all of my gear, at the very, very end, the last upgrade I made was the Awakened Multi-Strike. Okay, so hopefully that does give you a sort of idea how to build a character. And after this, if you want to push further, is you're going to be getting a synthesized helmet. You're going to get a mirror tier body armor, mirror tier gloves, and then probably when someone makes one, a mirror tier pair of boots, maybe a mirrored amulet, maybe another mirrored ring. And then if you want to go even further, you can get some mirrored small clusters, and just go ham with all of those, get about 8 of those, and have a real good time. So I'll have those mirror tier POBs ready sometime on the weekend. I think should be done. Thing is, there isn't really, I don't think there is any boots yet, but I guess I'll just make something in POB what I think would be the best. I'll have those so you can kind of look at what the stats would be like. All right, so closing thoughts about the build. Definitely feels a lot squishier than I remember in Affliction. Maybe it's just because I'm actually only at like 6k ES and 6 endurance charges, but I did kind of stray from the original plan of getting tons of energy shield, and I just got greedy with the damage. But damage definitely does feel very good, right? I'm at like 500 mil DPS right now with full buffs up, and it does feel like I'm killing the Feared very, very quickly. Yeah, but defense-wise, I do wish I was a little bit tankier, actually. I think that'll get solved, though, once I actually build properly for energy shield and get, like, more endurance charges and that kind of stuff. But, I mean, already at, like, 85k max hit at the moment. But, yeah, I think I'll have to... Mainly the problem right now is my small clusters. You can see my small clusters are, like, really bad. I only have, like, one decent one, I think. Yeah, this one here. This is like my only decent one, and it's like T2 int, so not even the best. But the other ones are kind of okay, like 9 and 3, 9 and 2. But anyway, so that's like the last thing I'll have to upgrade until, and then after that I'll start looking at some mirror items, see if maybe mirrored one of those, or I'll make my own. I'm not really decided yet. Really liking the build, definitely recommend, guys. But I think that'll be it for this video. If you have any questions, post it in the comments or my Discord. So that'll be it for this one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.